Buddy, put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Show.
Greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show. Streaming.
Oh, baby. Live around the world on the internet at MichaelDukesShow.com and across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or translator. Good morning and welcome to the program. It is the Michael Dukes Show. Hello, my friends. Hello. How are you doing? How are things going this morning? It's hump day, middle of the week, downhill slide. Only 20 days away from tax day. Just wanted to throw that out there in case you were 20 days to get your taxes all finished and put together and put to bed. My favorite day of the year. Absolutely my favorite day of the year. Welcome to the program. Thank you for being part of it today. We are we're locked and loaded for today. Today is Wednesday, which means that we get a chance to talk with our good friend and my senator, State Senator Mike Shower, who comes in and joins us and is here to talk with us about all the things that are going on down in Juneau. And there are plenty of things going on down in Juneau these days. So we'll be talking with him about that stuff here this morning, and we'll see what happens here in hour two as we embark on what we like to call the Shower Hour of Power. And we'll be talking with him here a little bit later, just about 1 hour from now. We'll be picking it up with State Senator Mike Shower. And that leaves hour one open for a little bit of open line, open forum. We're going to go ahead and open up the phone lines. First things first, though, let me just say that if you haven't decided to support the show, might I suggest that you do. There's a couple different ways you can do it, but the easiest way is to just become a member of what we call the Common Sense Corps. And that's kind of like the cool kids. It's kind of like a fan club. It's kind of like the Cool Kids Club. And all you have to do is go over to my website at MichaelDukesShow.com and click on the Join the Corps banner. And you'll find the links to Patreon, which basically, for the cost of a cup of coffee a day, you can, a month, not a day. Oof, man, I wouldn't ask you to give up coffee for the whole month. That would be horrible. But for the cost of a cup of coffee a day, you can help support the show. And it helps do that. We did a whole studio remodel and revamp in December with new equipment and new computers and new stuff. And that was all thanks to the folks who are members of the Corps. They helped support and fund all the technology upgrades and stuff that we've got going on. So anyway, and it's a good thing to do. So go check it out. Common Sense Corps, MichaelDukesShow.com. Go there and do it. If you're so inclined. If not, that's why baby, radio is free. That's the beautiful part, isn't it? Didn't you know that? The radio is free. Meanwhile, we're going to go ahead and open up the phone lines this morning, and we're going to crack those things open, and we'll do a little open phone, just whatever you want to talk about this morning. 907-433-3150. 907-433-3150. And of course, the program today and the phone lines and pretty much everything else around here is sponsored by our friends over there at Satellite West. From Unalakleet to Uktaavik, from Eagle to Eek, from Tin City to Talkeetna, Satellite West will keep you covered no matter where you are in the state of Alaska with phones, connectivity, text messaging, emails, even just surfing the internet. Satellite West has got all the technology to make that happen for you. Go to satellitewest.com, find a dealer near you, and we'll jump in on it. It's going to be fun stuff. Satellitewest.com, proud sponsors of the Michael Dukes Show. Okay, 907-433-3150. I got some other stories as well. Yes, Mike, you can call in if you want. That's fine. It is open line, open forum today. We've got some stories. And in fact, I've even got some good news. Some good news. Because don't we just need that sometime? Don't we just need some good news sometime? I like it. I'm happy to discuss it with you this morning. So feel free to hang out and we'll figure something out. How about that? We'll figure something here. Okay. Where do I want to start? Where do I want to start? Want to start with good news, or should I take on the politics? I guess we'll take on some of the politics first, and see what you guys think about this so far. So there is this is a story that's been going on in Fairbanks now. For those of you living on the peninsula, you're next. But this is a story that's been happening in Fairbanks now for, gosh, I want to say 15 years. 15 years. I was dealing with for 7, 8, 9, 10 years before I left, and now I've been gone for 7 years. So it's been going on for over 15 years. There has been, an air quality issue in Fairbanks. And the EPA has continually kind of moved the goal line on this stuff. And now the people of Fairbanks and the Chamber of Commerce and many others are throwing their hands up, with the whole moving target thing. There's a resolution pending in the legislature right now that urges both the EPA and the Alaska DEC, Department of Environmental Conservation, to do more to address wintertime air pollution in Fairbanks. House Joint Resolution, according to the Alaska Beacon, calls on the federal agency to improve the wood stove certification program that has been deemed ineffective. Now, there's been a wood stove certification and change-out program in Fairbanks. It must have started 10 years ago, 12 years ago now, where you could get your stove changed out with grants from the borough, from the state. I think it was all EPA money that came down initially. Or maybe it was it was a lot of government money was flying around, encouraging people to change out their wood stoves with what was said to be at the time better stoves. Now, it turns out that the Inspector General's office and the EPA's Inspector General found that the agency's national wood stove certification program was flawed. They said the EPA spent about $82 million in grants for programs across the nation, not just in Alaska, to change out residential wood stoves. And many of the replacement models failed to meet the emission standards, which is a problem when you're changing out. The whole attempt here was to use government money to change out stoves, and lo and behold, the stoves that they replaced them with failed to meet the same emission standards, which is just insane. The people in Fairbanks were seeking to upgrade their wood stoves. They were able to use a state list of recommended products, which seemed to do a little bit better. Now, the air quality in Fairbanks has gotten better since 2015, which as after I left. They have been able to cut the fine particulate pollution, the PM 2.5, particulate matter 2.5. They've been able to cut that almost in half. The average fine particulate pollution back in 2015 was about 130 micrograms per cubic meter. Last winter, it was down into the 60s and the 70s, which is a pretty good time. The problem is the target is 35 micrograms per cubic meter, which is damn near impossible. I mean, just really impossible. I remember Glenn Miller, who was the head of the air quality division as well as the transportation division, making the comments that while we were focusing on wood stoves, that even if you eliminated all the wood stoves in the area, and it's estimated that about 40% of the people in the North Star Borough burn heat either primarily or secondarily for their heat, right? So it's the primary heat or it's their secondary heat, about 40%. He said even if you eliminated all the wood stoves, we would not be able to hit that attainment goal of 35 parts per meter. And that is part of the problem, because the next step, which the EPA has kind of let the cat out of the bag on, is that they're going to come after your furnaces. The issue gained some urgency after the EPA in January issued a mixed preliminary verdict on the state's most recent plan for getting Fairbanks' winter air to federal standards. EPA found that while parts of the air quality attainment plan submitted by the state DEC would be positive steps, other parts of the plan were not acceptable. The EPA faulted the state plan for failures to justify omissions, not emissions, but omissions of requirements for the best available control technology for coal-fired and oil-fired electricity generation or the use of ultra-low sulfur diesel for heating. That's what they want. They wanted, this is what's happening. And I talked about this before I left Fairbanks, that this was the step that was coming down the road. First, it was PM1, then it was PM 3.5, and now it's PM 2.5, and they're going to keep moving the needle on it. And the next step is to come after your stoves, your furnaces. They're going to want you to start burning ultra-low sulfur diesel for heating instead of number 1 or number 2. And this is part of the problem. Of course, the Fairbanks business leaders, understanding that there is business and there's balance and things like this, understands that these measures are going to be too expensive for many people. The cost of ultra-low sulfur diesel to burn in their furnaces is significantly higher than heating oil, and that's going to be a problem. So this new legislative joint resolution is supposed to hopefully do something. It's going to call on the federal agency to improve the wood stove certification program that has been deemed ineffective. It also calls on the state to develop an economically and legally defensible state implementation plan to achieve federal air quality standards. Now, on the hook here, on the line for all this, is some of the highway funds. That's what the EPA has been threatening with, that they will withhold highway funds if we do not hit attainment. Federal highway funds. Many of us have at one point said, well, do your worst, because if it comes down to the question of, can we heat our homes? Can we live? Can we stay safe? Can we stay warm? That's in one of the coldest places in the nation. That's a tough question. How are we going to do it? I think the next point of this is that they're going to leverage people out of burning fuel oil, and they'll be forcing people to swap out their oil burners for natural gas burners, which was all part and parcel of the whole IGU thing in the beginning and all that stuff. I could see the handwriting on the wall. They were going to use it down the road to leverage people into that and basically say you have no choice. They might offer change outs or something like that, but it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. It's frustrating. I know. But anyway, this thing's been going on, like I said, for nearly 20 years. And here we are today. And don't know what to say. Don't know what to say. All right, we're up on the break. I do have a line on hold. I'm sorry, caller. I wanted to finish this story. And so we'll get back to it here in just a moment. And when we return, we will continue with your phone calls. I've got some other stories as well. And we can continue this discussion. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Back with more right after this.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay, in the break right now, let's go to the phones and get this caller's name so we know who we're talking to here and see what they have to say. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Yeah. Good morning. It's Mike. I'm from Wasilla. I left a message for you.
Oh, okay. Hi.
Anyway,
Hold the line,
Yeah.
Mike. We're in the commercial break, so I'll be back to you. You'll be first up in the queue when we come back from the commercial break, so we could start on the radio. So hold the line, Mike in Wasilla. And why didn't that change? Because why? Don't know. Let me check the Wasilla. Enter. There we go. All right, now it's changed. Okay. Let me go back to the chat room. Let me go back to the chat room. Yeah, you're right. If the standard drops again, says Rob Myers, it'll catch the Matsu. Yep. Absolutely. But wait, gas stoves are bad, says Bill. I mean, that's the other thing, because particulate matter also has to do with the amount of water vapor that's in the air, and natural gas stoves still produce water vapor, and it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing, man. Can you talk about? Oh, I just did. Ken was like, can you talk about the air quality bill? I just did. Imagine that. The EPA flawed. I know. It's a thing. You know, the whole thing, the thing that really drives me crazy about this whole thing is that initially it was, again, PM 1.0. And then it was PM, I think they actually had like a 0.6 or something. And then they went to 3.5. And now they're down to PM 2.5. And one day it'll be PM 1. That'll be the answer. They'll just keep moving the goalposts until they basically tell everybody. You know, the problem with Fairbanks is graphical. It's a valley, it's a bowl, right? Surrounded by mountains, and you get that super cold inversion layer air. And in fact, there's a whole did I just do it? There's a whole thing about how they talk about that during strong inversions, local levels of particulate can vary dramatically between neighborhoods, but they are more uniform during weak inversions. I mean, inversions are causing a majority of this, holding all this particulate matter and stuff down near the ground. Those are the worst days. I mean, I know, because I lived in what they called the Triangle of Death. I mean, that was not scary at all. The Triangle of Death in North Pole. It was this little triangular piece of area it's a low-lying area just outside of North Pole that had some of the highest particulate matter in the whole. I mean, I noticed some days you could smell the wood smoke or the coal smoke, but never really bothered me. Apparently it's a thing. So anyway, Jerka says, honestly, can't believe we're having this conversation. Hey, that's what the government's here for. That's what the government's here for. We always used to joke about, what about the PM 2.5 when it was like forest fire season and stuff like that? I mean, come on. What do you think? Okay. If we keep up the global warming, the inversions will stop, right? Says. Yeah, no, my joke was always, we should put up some of those big, the big wind turbines that they use to collect power, right? The big windmill turbines. I say that we should put some up on the hills and just power them and have them push the inversion across the top of just turn the fans on, you know what I mean? And blow the inversion across the valley. That was not really a real thing, but that's what it's all about. Yeah. But yeah, global warming, if we could just warm up, if we could just get it warmer, and of course it has been pretty warm in Fairbanks since I left. Apparently my cold black heart was making the whole interior colder. It's, Wood stoves and cow farts all ruining the environment. Hey, there was a new thing that says methane is actually helping. I can read you that story from the Good News here in a little bit. All right, we're going back to it. Jumping back in, the Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Like and share, like and share. Here we go. Annette Funicello. All right. You guys ready? Let's get back into it here. I got some other stories, but I do have one phone call on the line. Mike is calling from Wasilla, and he wanted to talk about some of the problems that are going on in the Matsu judicial system, I guess, is what we're talking about here. Apparently, with a con artist that has been making his way across Alaska. He talked about this last week, I think. And we had several commenters in the show said that they'd have dealings with this con man that Mike was talking about. So I guess we'll get the details here real quick and see if we can educate some people on the dangers of dealing with folks and get his thoughts on it. Good morning, Mike. What's on your mind?
Well, I did some checking. I came up with a few things that especially the folks in Fairbanks might be interested in. According to Courtview, now I've talked to quite a few victims in Fairbanks. I've been on this for 5 years, so I'm condensing 5 years of information into a few minutes. According to Courtview, he paid about $245,000 in restitution on a $500,000 case, but every single person I've talked to in Fairbanks, none of them have gotten their money.
And I just
very interesting,
Mike. I think for clarification here, we need to be the beginning of the story. The guy's name and everything else for folks who weren't listening last week. So you're talking about somebody who has been conning people in the state of Alaska. Charles Yingst, is that right? That's his name?
Yeah, Charles Yingst. He started out in Fairbanks somewhere back in the early 2000s. Then he moved down to the Matsu and Anchorage area. He's had 2 felony convictions down here. Today, actually, at 10 o'clock, courtroom 4 in Palmer Courthouse, he's going to be sentenced to basically nothing. He was basically sentenced to nothing last time as well. Same ADA, Kristen Knoll Anderson, I think her name is. And essentially it's nothing. It's probation for X number of years and pay the restitution amount, but he doesn't bother paying it, at least the last time and probably not this time. But anyway, moving on from there, you want a little background on him. Anyway, to make a long story short, he's continued with it. What he does is he'll take a vehicle to repair it usually, steals the vehicle, strips it out, sells the parts, walks away. Or he rents equipment, sells it, and you never get the equipment. Or you get the equipment, but people want it back. In my case, he sold me a piece of equipment that didn't exist. He's sold cars that don't exist, things like this. They're out of state and I got to get it up here type thing, which is, it brings it to a federal level, but I'm going to stay. If somebody's got caught in that, they need to contact the FBI because obviously the ADA is not going to do anything about it. Kristen Knoll Anderson is just not interested. But anyway, to come back up to date, when I was investigating and looking into this, I found 6 felony convictions, and the 3 that I could find victim counts on the Class B felonies, there were 10 plus Class B felonies in these convictions. Each one of those is worth 10 years. Now, how many victims on the other 3 that I couldn't find anything on, I don't know. I just found basically a court file on it. And then there's 14 plus C felony convictions, which would be worth 2 years apiece. And there was a comment made to me that everybody wants to have the maximum penalty. And I guess my question at this point is, when do we go for the maximum penalty other than just probation and
I mean, if he's got
restitution?
Yeah, I mean, if he's got 15 counts of felonies against him already, then I mean, how could with a history like that, you're just going to give him probation and let him out, no house arrest or nothing else, just let him out on probation? That seems a little weak at this point.
Well, I'm going to correct you. There's 24 felony convictions, and he was on house arrest for 6 months. And so he could collect $10,000, and he gives that to the court. And it's a scale of how much money he pays and how fast and how long he'll be on probation is basically the way it works out. And, it's like the comment I made last time. He was out, I think, a week or 2 weeks, and he had $10,000 for the ADA. And I'm like, where did you get that money from? Did it just, after you've been in jail for nearly 5 years, you got no assets, and you can raise $10,000 in 2 weeks?
Well, yeah, I mean,
pretty remarkable.
I think you and I talked last time that he only was asked to repay something like half of what he estimated that he stole. My question was he sending it somewhere else and squirreling it away in Costa Rica or something, and then he was able to just pull some out and give to the system to get him off the hook? Is he just building his nest egg and getting ready to retire? I mean, what's the deal here?
Nobody knows, because the money just vanishes into thin air. I talked to the investigating officer. They searched his home. They went through bank records, things of this nature. They couldn't find it anywhere. He strictly deals in cash. If you don't have cash, he doesn't even want to talk to you. So where the money vanished to, nobody knows. But this case was actually, the original amount that was reported was $340,000. 6 weeks later, it was up to $640,000. $140,000, as I understand, but I couldn't get numbers out of the DA's office as to exactly how much he had stolen. They wouldn't give me that. Matter of fact, they wouldn't even tell me what the maximum penalties for these were. And I had to find that out on my own.
So, Mike, what's your suggestion for dealing with this? Because I know you've been stung, and after we had that first conversation, there was 2 people in the chat room at least that had said that they had dealings with him as well. And so this guy's obviously pretty prolific. What's your suggestion here you said there's a court hearing today at 10. Are you suggesting that people show up, or what's your point here?
Well, I would suggest several things. First of all is write letters, because this is far-reaching. This isn't just Yingst. This is far-reaching. What I would suggest is start sending letters to the governor's office, to your representatives, and telling them about it. In a personal note, if they show up at the courthouse when this hearing takes place, that would make a statement. Now, I got an email from the ADA yesterday. She's not going to be there. She's going to attend by phone. I'm not going to go into that, but anyway, just to make a statement of, look, we don't approve of this. And I've tried getting the new Anchorage paper to do a story on it. I've tried getting the Frontiersman to do a story on it. I've tried to get various news agencies to do a story on it. Nobody's interested in this. And the only way we're going to get any legislation through to get this kind of thing stopped is if we start bringing it to the attention of making it a bigger deal. I've tried contacting online news sources. They're not interested in it. I've tried to contact the people that are dealing with the Supreme Court and the dealing with that. Can't get their attention. And basically, this has gone past the felon himself. This has gone to the judicial system. When the ADA contacted me about the deal, I told her no, and she said, well, I'll send you an email and we'll talk about it. So she sent me the email. I put some posts out or talked to somebody. Anyway, I started getting phone calls from victims that got an email from her. They would call on the phone. They'd get an answer machine, and she wouldn't call them back. They'd send her emails saying no. She wouldn't contact them back. She just ignores them. And the only reason why I'm getting contacted back is because I went through the victim's advocate in Anchorage and
right.
The OVR, and I'm not gonna say anything about the OVR. There's good and bad on that. But in any case, there's just the 98% are they're making plea deals on, and they're making these kind of plea deals. there's no justice here.
Right.
The victims of him
Well-
and everybody else, they're being re-victimized over and over and over again.
Right. Well, I think there's some lessons to be learned here, Mike. I mean, first and foremost, buyer beware. If somebody only wants to deal in cash, especially for something that, I mean, it's a legitimate business expense, if you're buying equipment or something like that, then yeah, you may want to you may want to rethink your drink. You may want to actually confirm that these things are that these things are actually real and viable. And secondly, yeah, you need to continue to put pressure on your local DAs and local folks and your legislators to talk about it. Like I said, you came on the program, talked about it, dropped the guy's name. Charles Yingst is the guy's name, by the way. And immediately I had two people in the chat room say, yeah, I got ripped off by him for, one of them said, well, it wasn't very much. It was only a couple $1,000, but I mean, $2,000 here, $10,000 here. Pretty soon you got